Hi, I'm Guy,
Hi, I'm Troy.
and this is Geek Take.
Have you noticed I'm on top for this episode size podcast?
Yep, he wants to be the top this time.
Yeah, I'm a switch. So,
I never really thought of myself as a bottom, but here we are.
eh, it's all,
There are some wonderful things about being Geek Tank at night. I can make
mhm.
those jokes.
And not worry about it anymore.
Yeah.
So,
Although it's one of those, and by the way, our topic is going said because I'm about to go right off topic over to the left over here and then come back. But I'm gonna.
I thought it'd be better just to leave our topic to the side so we don't steer away from it and just go around and flank it and then
Right. Well, sometimes you have to sneak up on those topics. If they see you coming, they can smell fear.
They're skittish.
They are, and they will run. They will run.
Fight or flight.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I was. We often, Troy and I have discussed growing up Gen X. The homophobia was very strong, and it was very difficult for us to make jokes about homosexuality and so one of the reasons why, if you guys have ever wondered why Troy and I really do revel in making jokes of that manner, even though both of us are pretty much straight, it's mostly because we're actually kind of happy that we're no longer living under that bar.
It's kind of making
we
fun
can say that openly without having problems,
Mm-hmm.
and we can. We're happy about that.
You say that, but there's definitely people I'm sure we make uncomfortable that are homophobic, which is part of the goal. I don't mind making people
too.
Kind of like poking those people.
Hey, Brent.
But yeah, definitely the thing. I mean, first kind of exposure to it being made fun of in the 80s was Bosom Buddies.
Yeah.
So there's one of those where the whole joke was two straight guys dressing in drag in order to live in an all women's apartment thingy, and so it just made fun of it. Anytime you saw something that was in the LGBT aspect, it was always poking fun at it and making it a joke, which is not the kind of representation you want your group to be getting. Instead of the actual actual representation that it deserves.
So, are you saying that maybe we're talking about representation?
See how I snuck around the corner?
And I was going to say, are we sneaking up on representation here?
We are. And for those who might not know, it is Black History Month.
Yay!
And I don't know if we have any really young viewers or people who just haven't thought about it or are on the spectrum, like one of my kiddos, and brings up the question where they're like, why is there a month specifically focused to this? And it's a dangerous question because if you aren't clear about your naivety of the world, it comes across racist when you ask that type of thing, because it is a racist response. It's just, it comes from the nature of where it's coming from. In that, well, it's because it's been so underrepresented that steps have had to be taken to force it to be represented, so those who would step in the way of it and cover it up can't. At least for 1 month they can't.
Right.
And I feel like recent events in the past year have kind of proven how, given power, certain groups will cover up representation and progress and achievements and just sort of sweep it under the rug and say, no, don't look over there. And they've kind of proven the point of why we need it.
Right.
And it's kind of sad that it's sad that it's only 1 month, but it's, look at how hard it is to force people to even acknowledge it for 1 month. Imagine trying to get them to acknowledge it all year long.
Right.
So
that's one of the, I think, biggest problems that I'm seeing with a lot of different, these DEI initiatives, anti-DEI initiatives, because I can understand the surface concept. I can understand what the thought process is. There have been times even where I myself have felt that there was an issue there. And so I kind of get it. And, of course, the problem with it is that it is missing a very vital key pin piece of information, which is one of the reasons why they keep going against it. And that is, it's always about equal.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's always say, well, we can't, hire black people. And I mean, if we have DEI things, then we're required to hire black people. So if you've got 4 open positions, I'm going to have to hire 2 white people and 2 black people. And, the concept.
They get the mindset that they will choose somebody underqualified.
Right.
And that's not what's happening.
The concept always, yeah, exactly. The concept is that they're going to have to go down to the bar and pick 2 guys who happen to be black and throw them in the job, even though they have absolutely no idea how to run this thing, just so that they can fill a quota. And of course, nobody realizes that it's always been about, you must choose equal people out of your pool of equally chosen people. And I've even had these arguments where the next step is, well, what if the 2 white guys are better qualified? And then I said, well, then that's your fault for not putting those qualifications in, not their fault. And that's the problem and that actually is exactly how we used to get around those rules, was by saying there are a whole bunch of mystical qualifications that we didn't add in there. And these 2 guys have those qualifications and these 2 guys don't. They're black. And we're not going to say that they're black. We're just going to say that they don't have the qualifications.
Right.
Thus, you ended up in the situation where you were still, and this is actually proved, I always tell this story because this is one of those things where it really struck me. I was working at a job as a temp. I did a lot of temp work for a while there. I was going from temp job to temp job because
it's funny how ADHD people fall into temp jobs like that.
It's because it was easy and I didn't get fired easily.
And you don't get bored with the job because it changes every
right. Because it changes. I'm always constantly having a different job. So, but I was at this job. I won't mention the job. Working in a department. I was very good at my job. I did a great, excellent job, everything like that. And I had made friends with a buddy who is in the next section over. There was like 3 sections under 3 different managers. They were all doing the same thing. All 3 departments were doing the exact same thing. But I had made friends with this buddy over in the next department over. And it was actually kind of funny because she would go out on smoke breaks and I'd go with her, even though I don't smoke, but I got the break. I like the break. So, and we would just start chatting. And at one point in time, she and I were talking and she said, yeah, well, the guy that's in charge of your division is racist and misogynistic. And I was like, oh, come on, don't be like that. Because he's a nice guy,
because all your interactions have been nice.
All my interactions have been nice. But it wasn't just that. He seemed nice to everybody else. It wasn't like he was a mean manager or anything. And she said, no, really, go back and look at your division. Tell me how much diversity you have. And I went back and everybody in the division was a white male. Everybody. The entire division of some 35 people were all white males. Her division had women and black people and Asians, and like it was a mixed race thing. And we were doing the exact same job, literally the exact same job. That's why we were hanging out and talking, was because every time I was doing, of course, a temp piece, but even I was a white male in this division. Like you could see it. And I had never seen that. And this was 2005. This wasn't like this was 1962.
Right.
This was 2005. This was 20 years ago, sure, but still, it was in this modern era. And he had managed to find people who were only qualified to do these jobs and managed to end up with an entire department of white men. And I hadn't realized that until we were literally sitting 2 departments next to each other. And there were 3 departments, and the other department, of course, was also very mixed and everything like that.
Yeah.
And this lady and I, this buddy of mine, whom we were friends, she was certainly much more qualified to do the job than I was. She'd been there for like 25 or 30 years or something at this company doing the same job. And she was super smart and super good at her job, and she knew what she was doing and everything like that. I mean, it was like, So it's not like they were having a hard time finding people to fill the roles.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That was probably the first time that I really realized that institutionalized racism does exist and can get away with it in the system without people noticing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because I grew up in, white neighborhood Arvada, and there's not a lot of diversity in the city. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't grow up in schools that had a lot of diversity. It was like there wasn't a whole lot of diversity in any of the Jefferson County schools. It's like there's
Right.
just not. And so it's
that kind of leads into a point I was going to make too, and I do want to sidebar. Apologies to everyone. We are not unaware of the irony of two white middle-aged guys talking about racism.
We're very aware of that.
We are not the most qualified people that should be doing this, but it's our damn podcast. But
Right.
I saw a post by one guy, a thing that he looks like he would be MAGA. He's got the beard. He's overweight set, not unhealthily, but clearly on the heavier side. Is involved in stuff like hunting and building and all of the manly stuff, but is extremely open-minded. I wouldn't say liberal. I'd say open-minded.
Yeah, I don't necessarily call myself liberal per se. I just consider myself progressive.
But they grew up being bombarded in the way many white people are, and in the conservative and hardcore stuff. And then as he, hit his formative years between 13 and 16, he began to go, well, why are we turning away these people? We're supposed to accept everyone in church, and started to really question everything. And he was talking about how he can walk between worlds, because he can walk through the MAGA world and be unnoticed because he looks like one of them. And he is saying it's important that people like us speak out so other people like us realize it's happening, because they might listen to us more than because their brains are locked off from people of color, and they just say, oh, they're just saying that because they benefit from the effects or whatever. But yeah, progressive conservative, that's a good term for it.
I'll go with that too.
But yeah,
I feel like you haven't jumped ship yet.
Yeah.
So you've been staying with us this whole time,
Right.
Brent. So
haven't upset you yet.
I'm figuring at least you tolerate us, one of the two.
But yeah, I think although we are not the best ones to be doing it, we are a bridge that hopefully can reach other people like us that might not have thought about it yet. Something that, and I forget when it was, but it's probably mid-20s when I finally began to see a lot of the, like, digging into it and hearing the stories and looking into it, how the system has been crafted to be against people of color. And when you're talking about when people apply for jobs, putting those requirements. So part of the way the system was set up to make those requirements harder for people of color is by putting certain requirements on the education level. And by 50s, 60s, when they started to just try to make it to where, well, any school that somebody of color is going to get less funding. It's going to make it harder for them to get into college, and just put all these barriers in front of them so they can never progress outside of that circle of poverty within their family. And it's to look into it and see how systematic it is, or systemic, that's the word I'm looking for.
I make the mistake of mixing those two up all the time.
But it's when you can see, oh, here's this and this and this, it's clearly been happening. But it's getting people to understand that if you don't actively take stances and actions against that kind of thing, the people who do want that kind of thing to happen are going to cover it up and push it away. And how does this all tie into geekdom?
Well, but I do want to, before you get that,
sorry, I took it back.
Well, no, I mean, really just adding on to that one, that it also is important to see people say, hey, we see it. Because especially people who are, white and present in that way, it's good to have them say, no, we see the problems are out there. We're with you. We get it. And so that's important.
And I do not want to open this can and pour it out, but I will say that it is coming to light that a lot of white people now are going, wait, law enforcement's not on the up and up. And so it took a few people a while to get there, I think. But
well, and we can get to that one at
some other
some
point.
point
Yeah.
as well. Yeah.
Um,
But I mean, I think that when we talk about geekdom on this one, we do have quite a bit of interesting commentary and interesting things that are happening in geekdom, which involves representation and things like
so for
that.
this show, we were going to focus heavily on your field of expertise.
Right. Because I have lots of well, I would make jokes about this, but I was going to make a joke like I've got no expertise, but no. I really, when it comes to Star Trek, I really do have quite a bit of expertise. And of course, Star Trek has been on the forefront of representation for Black people specifically
from the beginning. But we're
since the very beginning,
which we'll get to.
We'll get to, because we're going to go backwards on this one a little bit here, because we're starting with Starfleet Academy, which one of the things that I noticed a lot with Discovery and Starfleet Academy, and things that I'm noticing quite a bit, is that both Starfleet Academy and Discovery had a relatively accurate distribution of racial makeup for America, provided that you consider Doug Jones as white male. Even though he was playing, obviously, an alien, you have to kind of go with, okay, well, maybe you look at him as white male. So, because if you don't, it does mess up the numbers a little bit. But relatively well-defined, well-rounded group, which is interesting because it feels like they took a lot of flack for being woke and having way too much, using the term woke in the conservative way, which is pandering to minorities, as opposed to using woke in the way that it was intended. They're using it in pandering, and so, but it was pretty close. I made a check on this. I ran a check, and this is first season. This isn't later on, but first season, I was looking in because they were people were complaining that there was way too much, people of color in it. It was unrealistic. And I went and looked at just the census, and the census showed that we had this distribution. I can't remember what the distribution was exactly, but it was pretty much right down the line, conspicuously so, to the point where I'm almost like, I feel like somebody said, let's just make it as straight up as it could be,
I have not seen Academy.
I know those hoof heels. But you know what? Doug Jones, is a side note, Doug Jones is such an amazing trooper, because he has been an alien in everything and required 72 trillion layers of makeup on everything he has done. And for those of you guys who remember, he was Mac at Night back in the day. The one who was playing the piano with the head that was Moon. He was the Mac at Night guy. And I didn't know that, but I'm like, man, I've been a fan of that guy since the beginning. I didn't even know that, but I have been. That was one of his first jobs, was to play the little Moon guy playing the piano at Mac at Night. But yeah, I mean, just give him props for being a trooper, walking around those heels. There is the same alien has shown up in Starfleet Academy, which is cool. But that person also is wearing the horrible heels. Yep, Hellboy. Yep. So that I really kind of wanted to address. Now, there is some very interesting stuff that I'm noticing about this. I got a very unique post in there at one point in time. This last episode of Starfleet Academy featured the Klingons, and this was a thing where we went and kind of explored where the Klingons were at this time in Star Trek's history. One of the things that's interesting is the Chancellor, or the highest ranking person involved at this point in time, was portrayed by a white actor. This is not uncommon, actually. Klingons typically are played by white and black actors. They're in so much makeup you really just can't tell. But people were saying, was he an albino? And they were making jokes about him being an albino Klingon. And I'm like, no, this is pretty normal. But in a way, I was realizing that that's kind of backhanded racism.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're saying, look, hang on, my cat, for some reason, cannot stop licking this trash bag. So I have to keep moving the trash bag. Because my cat's licking the trash bag. Stop licking the trash bag.
It's the weirdest euphemism ever.
I know. Except that it's not a
I know.
Just,
by the way,
really
let's just look it up because I have not seen Academy yet. So I know very little.
Yeah.
Yet. Actor's name playing the Klingon is Karim Diana.
Mm-hmm. I follow him on Insta.
Okay.
He is so geeky.
You mentioned earlier that the name was escaping you, so I thought I'd look it up for you.
Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you.
But yeah.
Playing Jaden.
And but recently, and this is the thing that I had seen but hadn't watched. I was mentioning that he and Michael Dorn had gotten together and were trading Klingon war stories. And one of his quotes in the interview they said is that I obviously Googled the crap out of you beforehand and watched every single video that you have ever posted on the internet. So he's doing his research on Michael Dorn as a Klingon and stuff.
Oh,
so
that actor is dedicated. He's learned Klingon. And little interesting tidbit that I haven't seen anybody bring up about episode 4 of Starfleet Academy. When he says Klingon words, he says them in Klingon, which is interesting because Kronos is pronounced Kronosh with an SH, and Kalis is pronounced Kalesh with an SH. Klingon tends to not have the trailing S. It tends to have an SH. And I was watching it. Everybody else was saying Kronos and Kalis, and he was saying Kronosh and Kalesh. And I was like, huh. Like, the kid doesn't just do his research. Mm-hmm. He's on this. And I don't know. They didn't speak Klingon. But those are known words in Klingon, obviously. Mm-hmm. But so they weren't speaking Klingon. So I don't know if they had a Klingon language person on set for that episode. Generally speaking, when Star Trek brings on Klingons that are speaking in Klingon, they tend to have a Klingon translator on set. So that you get the actual pronunciation right. Discovery was hard on the Klingons because they were all speaking in only Klingon for many of the episodes, which I thought was way cool and really brutal for those poor actors. I always feel bad for the actors.
Definitely weeded out the people who are like, I can't read while I watch a show. I can't do the subtitles.
Yeah. Which silly for Trekkies. Anyway, yeah, but I thought that was, and I haven't heard anybody mention it. I guess they're just, I haven't seen anybody. They're too busy railing on Academy for doing the things that they always rail on the new Star Treks for, which is they're so woke and they're so, so busy talking about equality that they're not talking about the things that Star Trek usually talks about. I'm like, that's equality.
Yeah.
I'm like, usually Star Trek's talking about equality problems. I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're also so busy saying they're breaking canon. And then you literally had a character on screen who was mentioning words in the native tongue that is a made up tongue for, you know what I mean? Like, this is a fictional language and he's doing it correctly. And this guy, he studied everything. He also is artificially lowering his voice so that he talks really deep. And he practiced for months artificially lowering his voice so that he can have that very deep rumble that he says, he also adds that they add after, they go through and work on it a little bit. But a lot of that is on set practically dropping that.
He's got
voice.
an interesting launch into his career. that he garnered a sizable following online by uploading weekly videos of himself singing in the shower and got millions of fans, and then was subsequently chosen by a talent scout to compete in the X Factor USA singing competition, where he received unanimous yeses from all the judges for what he did. So definitely one of those talents that was basically found. That,
Yeah. And he's awesome. I'm loving what he's doing. And I love what they're doing with Jaden as well, the character. So they're really extending out the Klingon line. But a lot of the Klingons these days are represented by black actors. That's been a trend that's been going
Since
on. It really
next
oddly was
next
set
gen,
up by Tony Todd.
next gen, right?
Yeah, Tony Todd, who was playing, Tony Todd of Candyman
Right.
fame,
Horror
who was
fans know who
playing,
Tony Todd is.
yeah, who played, which of course I didn't.
'Cause
If you
not
ever
a
ask me who Tony Todd is, it's Worf's
That's right.
brother. I'm like, that's who I know, because I won't watch Candyman. That's just full of
not the
jump
guy
scares.
from the remake of Night of the Living Dead. Not that guy.
No, I wouldn't know that one either. But it sort of started with Michael Dorn and Tony Todd. It's not a given. I mean, obviously, the actor who plays Gowron is white,
Fraser.
and so is the actor who played Bartok, and and so there's been a lot of that. But it's funny that was sort of the thing, and that's been a running thing for no real reason. But yeah, it is interesting. So moving back from this current era, obviously the big representation came from Sonequa Martin Green playing the captain in Discovery, first female captain who was black. That one was risky because they put her in initially being a mutineer, and that was a risky move on their part, because it's so that always, whenever people start saying Star Trek is all about just this, making black people look awesome and never making them look bad, I throw that in their face, because I'm like, look, we started out with her being a mutineer. And throughout Discovery, she has been somewhat of a wild card. She's been good, but she's like getting close to Captain Kirk on the, running kind of roughshod over the Prime Directive sort of thing.
Just following Kirk's footsteps.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing wrong with that. I loved it, but it's definitely not making it look beautiful, or whatever. So, right, we did have the albino ones in Discovery as well, but they were specifically albino. Although in this case, I feel like that was a backhanded like commentary.
Well, they also, when you're talking about, hey, they never put people of color as bad guys. Star Trek Beyond had Idris Elba as a villain, so that's the people who say that stuff are just fishing for something to support their views on it.
Yeah, they are. One of the things that I always remember that I love. This is one of my favorite stories ever. It's a small part. Caitlin Dar, who is the Romulan ambassador in Star Trek V, not the world's awesomest thing, but she had once talked about the actress had talked about her hiring process. And she got a call from her agent saying that there was an open audition for Star Trek. She didn't know much about Star Trek, because a lot of people didn't know much about Star Trek in the 80s. But she was willing to go in for it. And she said, "What are they looking for?" And her manager said, "They literally did not say." And so she went in, and she said it was the first time that I had ever gone to an audition, and I was sitting in a room full of black men, white men, women, all over. I mean, because she's Asian. And so usually when she went in for
audition,
a part on an audition, she was sitting in a room full of Asian women. And instead, there was just everybody. Like they were from all over, and they were all reading for the same part. And she was like, this is the weirdest thing. And what it had turned out was they didn't have a plan in mind. They figured anybody could play that part. So they were going to stick the ears on somebody, and they just going to go through who had the best read for it. They didn't have a concept as to who this individual was. The individual never played any part of, pushing a specific thing, that any kind of specific race or gender or anything like that. I thought that was fascinating. I don't think I've ever heard of that in the industry.
I just realized we should something we never heard of at the mid-break was our sponsorship.
Right? We should get to the sponsors, which is sponsored by Kieran Games, Geekway Homes, the Massage Wizard, and your mom.
Your mom.
Your mom.
I have bought, as you have, tiny plastic spaceships from Star Trek from Kieran Games.
I do. I love that. But yeah, Star Trek has always been good about representation. Why is representation important, I guess? I think kind of in a way, I want to kind of move to that point. I've been saying recently, one of the reasons why I'm a Trekkie is because Spock is autistic. So is Data. I don't think that, nobody ever says that they are, but they are, right? And
overly analytical, bad with social cues.
Right. All of the things that I was as a kid. And that's amazing to think about it. I don't know if we'll never know, because of course this aspect of autism and spectrum and things like that happened long after Roddenberry passed away. But I do know that Roddenberry did model Spock after a friend, somebody he knew. So there is and I don't know who that friend is, or, because he just said that he had modeled it after a friend. That's all. There was no, and my friend, Bob Smith was, or whatever. He didn't say who it was. But it's clear he modeled the character of Spock after somebody who I would presume was on spectrum. And it was important to me because Spock never got what people were talking about. Why are you like this? Why do you care? And I'm sitting there going, yeah, why are they like this? And I'm feeling that directly. And being able to see that Spock was appreciated, his opinions mattered, even when he was on some kind of, his authority mattered. What he said mattered. Data would do things like speak endlessly about irrelevant information, just like I do. He would go on tangents, just like I do. And have this amazing data bank of information, just like I do.
Joke.
Yep, data bank. Data bank. Anyway, but the long and the short of it is that was representation. They were both respected. And as I grew up, I had problems being respected. I had a problem with people understanding me. I had problems with people letting me move to the next level, be a manager, be paid better, be, all of those things. None of that stuff ever happened for me because really those kind of people in real life are somewhat looked down upon. It was great to be represented. And I have heard now we're moving back into Deep Space Nine. Because
my favorite, by the way.
Yes. And the number of times that Avery Brooks, who plays Cisco, had gone to a convention and a black man would come up to the microphone and say, I want you to know that seeing you be a father and be there for your son, and a single father, often were the things that made me make it through the night when my wife passed away or my wife left. and I was stuck with the kids. And all you're getting in media is that black men just abandon children. And I knew I had to stay here, and I was gonna, but it was hard. And I'd turn on the TV and you were there for your kid. And that made them get through the night. And I thought about that and I'm like, that's a piece of this puzzle. And it's a piece that we don't often talk about, is that media representation, especially when we're talking about the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, there was a lot of stereotyping. And there was a lot of black men did not take care of their children. They abandoned their children. This was all in the media. It's all in the chatter. You're still hearing it coming from political sides now. Like the reason why the world's bad is because of, and it's all this stereotyping. And in real life, of course, people are people. Some do, some don't. They go everywhere.
Yeah, I've in my late teens came up with a saying that I stick to: no race has a monopoly on good or bad.
Right. And it's true. It's true. And that struck me. I mean, that really affected me hearing those stories. And there are times.
I would bet every actor in Star Trek that is represented an underrepresented either
Group.
sex or group of any kind, they matter to that group. And it's important that they keep getting that groups are represented in that way in pop culture.
Yeah. And it's vital. And not knowing that I needed to be represented meant that I had no idea that that was part of the reason why Star Trek was my secret private world that nobody knew about, and the reason why I kept it so close to my heart. And I now realize there are many others out there who also keep it close to their heart. I'm following an influencer right now who is an insane Trekkie, and she is doing some amazing stuff out there. And her big thing is Mariner, from Lower Decks. That's her clamp in. That's her lock in. That's the one. And I'm like, yeah, Mariner is completely different even than when you deal with, Michael. Oh, come on. I just lost it.
Michael Dorn?
No.
Oh, you're doing the character? Her character. Yeah.
Why did I lose it? I just lost it. Oh, well.
I'm allowed to
aphasia. Let's just talk a little bit about neurodivergence and their inability to pull up data sometime. But yes.
Burnham. I was trying to type it in, and as I was typing it in, I realized Burnham.
It's because Beckett Mariner and Michael Burnham are backwards as far as M and B, and they flip. And my brain just wouldn't let go of Beckett. But it's interesting that that's the thing. And of course, we now can...
The sidestep here, Dr. Mae Jemison.
Dr. Mae Jemison.
Gives credit.
Dr. Jemison, I loves her so much.
Gives credit for that inspiring her to pursue her career in NASA.
Yes. And Dr. Mae Jemison, by the way, has the unique honor of being one of the very few people who have been a crew member on the Enterprise and have been in space, a real astronaut in real life.
Yeah.
There are very few of them. There's, I think, 4 who've actually been a crew member on the Enterprise. And she's the only black woman who's been both. And yeah, Dr. Jemison is just the best. And she is just so cool. Like, she's just cool. I'm just going to say she's cool.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack, but we were talking about representation and that, and how it affects people in other ways.
Star Trek has inspired many people to do jobs in the fields. I mean, even to some degree, me going back to school and becoming a scientist is inspired to some degree by Star Trek, because I really wanted to be legitimately able to wear the blue uniform, because the blue uniform is a science's uniform. Technically speaking, teachers wear blue, but really scientists do the science stuff. And I really wanted to. And there actually are archaeologists in Star Trek.
Nice. I didn't mean to sidetrack too much. Back to Michael Burnham and
so anyway, I'm heading back to where we wanted to go at the very beginning. We talked about this because, of course, as we move back through next gen, you end up with Whoopi Goldberg, which she was a wild, amazing story. For those of you guys who are familiar with Trek lore, Whoopi Goldberg at the time of next gen was an A-list celebrity. She was the hottest thing on the market. She had done all of these comedies. People knew her. She was a household name and everything like that. And when Next Gen started up, first season wasn't that popular. So first season hadn't gone very well. It was okay. It was, and if you guys watch first season of Next Gen, you're like, okay, got it. Yeah, it does definitely have a different feel. And as second season, they were on hiatus between the two. As second season came around, Whoopi Goldberg approached them and said, I want to be on the show. And they were genuinely baffled because they were like, but why would an A-list celebrity want to be on something like Star Trek? And she was absolutely upfront about this. She said, I'm in acting because of Nichelle Nichols. I am acting because of Uhura. I'm here because of Uhura. That's why I'm here. And she is a hardcore mainstream Trekkie that's like way down the line, like one of those that you don't argue with her about stuff. You know, she knows it. And she had said that. And she literally had a career. And her comment was when she first saw Uhura on the screen, she turned to her mom and said, look, it's one of us. And she's not cleaning the place or vacuuming or the maid or something. She's sitting in the center chair, taking command of the ship. And that changed her world forever. So, you know, going back and talking about representation and how that much changed, a lot of the time with representation, all you need to know is that it can happen. And that's it. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people don't think it can happen if you've been told it can't happen. If the concept is that it can't happen. And so that's the thing. And then, of course, moving back one more step. If you want to make a comment on TNG while you're at it.
Yeah, it's I was just gonna say people who watched it from the beginning. I was just gonna briefly like man skirts, but
scants. They're called scants,
and they're
actually
scantily seen.
So I don't know if you are familiar with Heather's. You know Heather, the cosplayer that we usually hang out with. Yeah. She has challenged me to wear a scant at some point in time. I would totally do that. I'd wear a scant. It'd happen. I have to get a blue scant though. That's hard to find because they only showed yellow and red, I think. So it's, and nobody ever makes them in blue or whatever.
Right. And you brought up Whoopi Goldberg for Next Gen. I was also like to point out Geordie LaForge.
As well, and of course bringing on, and that's another one of those where it's funny because LeVar Burton talks about this a lot, where he talks about the fact that everybody was baffled by this A-list celebrity. But LeVar had been in Roots and he was in Reading Rainbow, which means that it wasn't like he wasn't an
unknown. Yeah.
Right. In fact, most of the people coming into Star Trek, Will Wheaton had been in Stand By Me. You know, these people were known characters. They were known commodities. Now, a lot of them at the time, of course, Johnny Frakes had been, you know, he'd been bit part characters. So he didn't have a major role at that point in time. But most of them did. And Patrick Stewart was a Shakespearean actor, well known on the stage and stuff like that. So there was a lot of, so it made sense actually. It's just funny that the story always is that why would you want to do this? You know?
Yeah. All right. So every time. Yeah. So back to the grandfather of Trek.
Right. When we get grandfather, I mean the grandmother, grandmother of Trek.
Your mother.
Your grandmother. But yeah, I mean, that's when we get back there, we of course get back to Nichelle. And By the way, one of the moments of pride that I must mention every time we mention Nichelle
Right.
Nichols, she
Probably.
kissed me right here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind. It's like the fourth or fifth or sixth or 10th or 12th time, but that's one of those events that when it comes up, you should mention it.
You should always mention it because she
If
kissed me on the cheek because I'd
if you
been
were
her
kissed by Nichelle Nichols, you can mention
kissed by Nichelle Nichols. So I usually, of course, everybody knows the stories of her meeting Martin Luther King and things like that. She likes to bring that story up, or she liked to bring that story up. And it is true. There's no naysaying this. She was going to quit because she had a small part, and the entire piece of information, that reason why she brought up that lore was that Martin Luther King had said, no, don't quit. You can't quit. If you quit, you're the only one representing us. He was like, and you're showing them that you can, and you can be out there. And in the future, we will all be out there and stuff like that. So she literally stayed because of Martin Luther King, which is good. But I always bring up an interesting point, and another piece, and I don't know if I brought this one up before, but as a younger child, 8 or 9, I would watch, of course, Star Trek religiously, as I did. And I would go to Texas to see my family. And I remember being at my grandparents' house, and we were watching Star Trek. And I remember my grandmother and I were watching it, and I idly mentioned just how pretty Nichelle Nichols was, and I had a crush on her. And because I was 8, 9, whatever, doesn't really matter. It's a totally appropriate thing to have a crush on Nichelle Nichols. I'm just saying, there's nothing wrong with this. Anyway, and my grandmother said, you can't have a crush on Black women. And I remember that. Mm-hmm. And I remember that. And I even remember telling my mom about that.
Your mom.
And my mom saying, don't listen to her. You can have a crush on anyone you want. And Nichelle Nichols is most certainly crush-worthy. I remember my mom saying that. I remember my mom saying she's most certainly crush-worthy.
Yep.
Which
good for your mom.
Yeah.
I had an incident where I was first or second grade, and I don't remember if I brought it up or if my mom brought it up, but it's one of those, like, do you have a crush on anybody in school? Or if I brought up, hey, I have a crush on somebody in school, the girl who sits in front of me. And my mom's first question was, is she black? I'm like, what does that matter? And she was. But that's the kind of...
That's where we started.
That's where we started with the parents. Luckily, your mom was
my mom.
on the correct side of ethics and morals, and not had been beaten down by the world that they had grown up in the way that my parents were, and they never broke free entirely of that mindset. So thank goodness I had an older brother who was way more open-minded and up-to-date and understanding of human ethics and fairness, who I looked up to more, that I try to model myself after.
Yeah, I think one of my biggest regrets in life is that I never told Nichelle that story, because I had been in circles enough to have been with Nichelle.
That might be awkward to bring up. I has a crush on you when I was a kid.
I probably wouldn't be the first person to say I had a crush.
At least it's not I have a poster hanging up above my bed of you when I was a teenager. That'd be worse. Not worse to do, but worse to mention to the actual person. Let's keep that stuff private.
I really need to show you an episode of Star Trek.
I thought you were about to say I really need to show you my poster of Nichelle Nichols.
No, but you made that comment, and of course they've made that joke in Star Trek already. So
yeah,
that was
times.
That was a good. You said that, and immediately my thought was poor Boimler.
Anyway, yeah, Boimler.
Because of course it was Boimler.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. I find it.
So I was gonna quickly mention that when that episode aired, it wasn't aired, and you told me it wasn't aired in every place. And
when we're not talking about
Pluto's. No, the Kiss, the episode of the Kiss from the original one. Was that Pluto's No, wait.
Pluto's what?
What was the name of the episode with the kiss?
Oh,
Pluto's
yeah,
oh.
that's oh, come on, stop being stupid. My brain's being stupid tonight. It's because I can't get Who Mourns for Adonais out of my brain. That's not the episode. It's third season, and it is. I'll come up with it in a second. I don't know why I'm having a problem
Rejoined.
with memory recall this moment.
Rejoined?
No,
no, Rejoined was where was
Plato's Stepchildren. Oh my God.
Rejoined is where I did say Plato's.
Yeah, you did. You said Pluto's, which is where things got screwed up.
I'm sorry.
It's Plato's
Rejoined was Deep Space Nine with Avery Brooks, where they redid the thing, a version, their version of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
but yeah, which was the
Plato's Stepchildren, which was third season.
Do you remember which of the states didn't show it?
Yeah, it was southern states, like a lot of the southern states, Alabama, Georgia.
Did it show in Texas?
Texas.
Oh,
yep.
I guess it's a good thing you weren't living there.
Good thing I wasn't living there, because it would have been this bizarre oubliette. But yeah, there were a number of states that would not show that specific episode until well into the late 70s, early 80s. I think like the record was that one state wouldn't show it until like 1982 or something like that, something ridiculous. But that was a known.
And this is a great example of underrepresentation or trying to sweep things away. They're like, no, we don't want
to. Brent got it to me finally.
Nice.
Oh,
yeah, we don't want
children.
But by refusing to air it, they're basically saying we can't let interracial relationships be represented, because they understood the power of representation.
Right.
And they were
if you show people that it can happen, then it does.
Yeah. So screw you, racist people.
Right. Well, and it's
I'm sorry, we're after hours. Fuck you, racist people.
Right, there we go. Finally. But no, I mean, that's the thing, is that what does representation say? Representation isn't about furthering people, it's about showing people that it can happen. It's possible,
or that has happened.
By not showing it, you're pretty much trying to tell people this can't happen and doesn't happen. So yes, Plato's Stepchildren was a big deal. I think the funniest part is that William Shatner kept flubbing, because they were going to film two versions.
You told me this. I like this story.
Yeah, so there were two versions. They were going to shoot two versions, one where they kissed and one where they didn't. And they shot the one where they kissed, and then they were going to shoot the other one, which nobody wanted to do, but NBC was demanding that they did it. And so what Bill Shatner did was he kept screwing up the takes over and over and over until they ran out of time. So there was only one take, and they could only use the one take, because every other time he'd either look at the camera. Oops, I looked at the camera. So it was like, or he would say the wrong lines, or he'd start laughing, and he intentionally blew every one of the takes that was supposed to be the alternate take where they weren't going to kiss. So they ended up having to keep the one where they kissed, and there was nothing they could do about it. And since nobody in the actual production team of Star Trek wanted to do two versions, they were all good with it. So NBC didn't get to deal with it until after it was out. But NBC's argument was, and they're not wrong to this degree, there were a whole bunch of stations that threatened to throw away Star Trek and not show it. Not just not air that episode,
but to drop it entirely,
destroy the entire show, and never show Star Trek again. Because of that episode, there was a lot of threats for that. And if it wasn't for the fact that the Trekkies were so adamantly letter campaigning anybody who tried to get rid of Star Trek, then, if it hadn't been for that, that would have been the end for Star Trek. So NBC had a legitimate non-racist reason. I mean, it was racist.
Well, I was going to say it's racist,
not because of NBC. NBC wasn't racist. They had a legitimate worry that ended up panning out. So that's a thing to think about.
I just realized we're both wearing dad shirts.
We are.
So I'll show off mine. I don't know if is it flipped? It is flipped,
Yeah,
isn't it?
it is flipped, but mine says,
Yeah.
yep.
So mine is well, that's not a good sign, and a
Right.
sign that says bad. So
And we're both telling bad dad
bad
jokes.
dad jokes.
Mine says, I found this humorous,
Yeah, that
which
is
I love
humor.
wearing anytime I'm talking about anthropology
Mhm.
stuff
No
because
bone, no bones about it.
no
Love
bones
it.
about it.
Well,
Osteology time.
I feel like good talk, good podcast. I think we got a good jump into Star Trek.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we can find some ways to keep the show interesting and exciting and on topic for the month.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's see if we can do that.
so yeah, I'm going to reach out to a few friends and see if I can't get some people who are in the industry of different geekdoms to come on and be a guest. So we'll see. I think we know both of them.
Yep. We know both
Together,
of them.
and you were part of Red Team Go. I don't know if there's anybody in Red Team Go you want to reach out to, or because
No,
the names
no,
coming the names
the
coming to
name,
mind don't fit the
yeah,
theme.
the name, the second name that you were bringing up earlier, which I'm not
Uh,
going to bring it up because I don't want to promise anything without
well,
talking
yeah, I
to
don't
you.
want to promise it, and it could be a
But
surprise.
yeah, that individual was involved ancillarily through RTG's group, but
Okay, sweet.
wasn't part of RTG directly,
Mhm.
which is fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that'd
Cool.
be awesome. I love both of those guys anyway, so if we can
So,
get them in here, that'd be cool.
yep. So we'll see what happens. No promises.
No promises.
But yeah, we definitely passed 10. If Bob was here, Bob would be saying goodbye.
Bye, Bob.
But Bob's not
Good
here,
night, Bob.
so I have to be our alarm clock.
I know, right? Without Bob here, how are we supposed to know we're supposed to end the show?
I don't know.
Oh no.
Well, thank you, Brent, for showing up and
Yeah,
participating.
thanks, Brent.
Always
And
appreciate you showing
and
up.
hanging with us and tolerating us. All right. And then but I do think that we have pretty much burned the candle at both ends.
Mhm.
So it's time for us to go. We'll
Burn
see
the
you all.
burn the
Yeah,
bridge at both ends.
it's the burn. Yep.
Burn
It's the
Okay.
burn at both ends. Bridge burning. I don't know. We got lots of stuff that we're kind of.
We Michael Burnham to the candle at both ends.
There we go. Thank you, Brent. Thank you, Brent.
There, yeah, sweet. All right, do the
Brent's
thing,
doing
guy.
it for us. All right. Thanks, guys. This is all the time we have for today. We'll see you all next week. Until then, I've been Guy.
I've been Troy.
And this is